This episode of Baseball Bits is brought to you by The Athletic. That's nice of them. You can use my link at theathletic.com/foolishbaseball for a 30-day free trial, as well as 50% off your annual subscription. Before I get started, just watch this play.
Another chance for him. Deep short. Jump from. He got it again.
This might be blasphemy, but I think there's only one defender in baseball history who could make this play. His name is Andrelton Simmons. He has never been an All-Star, but I think he could one day reach the Hall of Fame. Hot takes. We all have them. Those deeply held convictions. To everyone else, they're outlandish, but to the holder of said spicy take, it is indisputable truth. This is my number one hot take. Andrelton Simmons will make the Hall of Fame. My number two hot take? Juan Soto is the next Ted Williams. And of course, there's number three, which is that the Cy Young Award should be renamed to the Old Haas Award. It makes sense. It's an award for pitching excellence in a single season. Why are we naming it after a filthy stat accumulator? Back to Simmons. When you watch today's Major League Baseball, some players just immediately stand out as being future Hall of Famers. Some of them have already made it, like Albert Pujols, while others just seem to be on a good trajectory, like Mookie Betts. The Angels themselves have another obvious Hall of Famer in Trout, who will reach automatic status the moment he steps on the field in 2020, as that will represent his 10th season in the big leagues. Anthony Rendon still has much to accomplish, but it's not impossible for him either. Even someone like Shohei Ohtani could reach baseball pioneer status for his two-way prowess, like the 19th century pitcher Candy Cummings, who was inducted for inventing the curveball. Yet, of all active players in Major League Baseball, Andrelton Simmons is creating a Hall of Fame resume that's as sneaky as they come. Keep in mind that for every obvious Hall of Famer like Pujols, there's guys like Harold Baines who are surprise Veterans Committee inductions. There are multiple paths to election, and I believe the future Simmons candidacy has the potential to appeal to new school analytics types, old school voters, and former ball players alike. And it shouldn't be a surprise that these arguments are centered around his standout quality. Defense! Defense! Andrelton Simmons might not be a superstar with the bat, but as Benjamin Franklin once said, a run saved is a run earned, which is to say that a run prevented by good defense is just as valuable as one created by good offense. And this nugget from a founding father is the foundation for Andrelton Simmons' Hall of Fame candidacy. To understand just how special Andrelton Simmons' defense is, let's first do a quick primer on defensive metrics. We're doing this because of the wisdom of Benjamin Franklin, but if you're already pretty well versed in your total zone, DRS, and UZR, you can skip to this point in the video where I talk about Simba's defense in particular. Just don't get mad at me in the comments if you don't know what's going on. Let's start with fielding percentage. Great, there it is. Do you know what we should do with it? Time's up. The correct answer was C. Throw it in the trash. Whoa, is that the trash can from? Never mind. There's a couple good reasons why fielding percentage is not to be trusted. Number one being that errors are decided by people, in this case, the scorers. A home run is a ball that travels over the fence. A walk is 4 balls. These are concrete facts. Errors are whatever a scorer feels like is an easy play not made. It's a judgment call, and often an inconsistent one. The second reason not to trust fielding percentage is that great defenders actually create more opportunities to produce errors. After all, they have the range to make plays that other defenders simply wouldn't get to. Errors in fielding percentage tell you the rate at which a defender makes routine plays, but it's the rate of unroutine plays made that separates the good defenders from the not so good. Here's range factor, a Bill James classic. It's not newfangled in any way, but it simply gives you how many plays the defender made per 9 innings versus the league average at that position. For example, as a center fielder, Willie Mays made 2.67 plays per 9 innings against the league average of 2.55 for his career. We can use those numbers to estimate that Mays made plus 324 more outs than the average center fielder throughout the course of his career. That's about 15 per season. The idea of measuring against the league average defender is the backbone for most modern defensive metrics, but the current stats we use to evaluate defense aren't based on outs. They're based on runs. Enter the big three: total zone, aka TZ, defensive runs saved, aka DRS, and ultimate zone rating, aka UZR. They're complicated. The Fangraphs primer for UZR is 6,000 words long and comes with an index, and it's a similar story for defensive runs saved on Baseball Reference. Even I don't really feel comfortable explaining them, especially in video format where I'm supposed to just be talking about Andrelton Simmons. Total Zone can be used throughout baseball history, while the UZR era begins in 2002, and DRS a year later. DRS and UZR are more refined than the archaic Total Zone, and are thus the two metrics that dominate defensive analysis today. If you're a fielding percentage traditionalist, worry not, as UZR includes an adjustment for errors, but the reason I group them together is that they're scaled the same. 0 runs is average, -15 is terrible, and +15 is elite. And I think you can figure out what everything else in between means. The vast majority of defenders will fall in this range for a single season. So, do they work? Well, the top third baseman by UZR last year was Matt Chapman. The eye test would confirm that he's obviously great, and he's a Platinum Glove winner. The worst third baseman by UZR? Vlad Guerrero Jr., a rookie who many feel projects as a first baseman or DH long term. He makes sense in this spot too. Statcast likely represents the future of defensive metrics, as it comes with ball and player tracking abilities that we previously didn't have. It's still in its infancy, but Outs Above Average is definitely worth looking at. It really is just a high-tech range factor. Let's keep talking ultimate zone rating and defensive runs saved. Where does Simmons rank in these categories? Here's a comparison of Simba versus other shortstops from 2002 onwards, aka the DRS UZR era. DRS loves him. He has 79 more than the next guy, Adam Everett. Interestingly enough, the defensive run save formula just updated this past offseason, and those numbers are available on the Fielding Bible website. Simmons has a +193 with the update, so not a big change. UZR has him at number 1 as well, but the gap isn't nearly as large. Keep in mind, these are cumulative stats, so playing longer is key to accruing good numbers. JJ Hardy has 4,500 more innings at shortstop than Simmons, while Jimmy Rollins has nearly 8,000 more, so Simmons will certainly build on these leads as he's only entering his age 30 season. In Simmons' case, I think the eye test also confirms his dominance. He makes some unbelievable plays. Let's look at Simmons against all other shortstops in MLB history. In this case, we'll be using DRS and UZR when available for modern players, but otherwise, it's Total Zone time. When it comes to Total Zone / defensive runs saved, Simmons currently ranks 3rd all-time among shortstops, and could become number 1 in the next few seasons. Hey, if a metric says that Ozzie Smith is the best defensive shortstop of all time, it's probably worth your time. Unfortunately, fielding percentage would insist that Ozzie Smith is actually the 24th best defensive shortstop of all time, just behind Steven Drew. Throw it in the trash. If we use Simba's UZR instead, he ranks at 15th, but given his age, there's still plenty of time to chase the rest of these guys down. If he stays healthy and remains an everyday player for the next 5 or so seasons, he could easily end up in the top 3. There's clearly a big gap between Andrelton's ultimate zone rating and defensive runs saved. We'll talk about it later. I thought it would be fun to look at his career on a season-to-season level. We can see that he has 3 of the top 7 shortstop seasons by UZR, as well as 4 of the top 10 by defensive runs saved, including number 1. In fact, if you look at the 2020 DRS update, 2017 Andrelton Simmons is the best all-time among players at any position. The end result paints the picture of a shortstop who will go down as the 1B to Ozzie Smith's 1A. It's difficult to say who's better, but I'm comfortable asserting that the pair of Ozzie Smith and Andrelton Simmons are just a cut above all other shortstops in terms of raw defensive talent. And here's a funny thing about Ozzie Smith. He wasn't a particularly good hitter, yet he's still in the Hall of Fame. It's time to talk hitting. Position players typically hit their way into the Hall of Fame, either by exhibiting elite offensive prowess or sticking around enough to accumulate impressive counting stats. But there are some Hall of Famers who rated as below average hitters. Andrelton Simmons currently has a 91 career OPS plus, and there are 5 Hall of Fame hitters who retired with a worse OPS plus than that. You have the defensive shortstop wizards Ozzie Smith and Luis Aparicio, head scratchers Rabbit Moranville and Ray Schalk, both of whom might be the worst players in the Hall of Fame. And there's Bill Mazeroski, one of the best defensive second basemen ever, but likely only in the Hall of Fame for walking off the 1960 World Series. The obvious comparisons here are Smith and Aparicio, and I want to throw 82 OPS plus Omar Vizquel in as well. If you look at seasons with at least 100 OPS plus, meaning at or above the league average hitter, Simmons and Vizquel have 2, Ozzie Smith has 4, and Aparicio, yes, Aparicio, I looked it up, has only 1. But all of those came in the age 30 season or later. Now, here are Simba's hitting numbers through 2018. He appeared to be on an upward trend, culminating in those back-to-back stellar seasons in 2017 and 2018, which were driven by a high-contact approach. But things went very wrong in 2019. Simmons suffered a severe ankle sprain on May 21st in a foot race to first base. Up until that point, he had put up very similar numbers to his previous 2 seasons. But the offense slowed down, and he slumped upon his return. He also missed most of August with yet another ankle sprain. If Andrelton Simmons is the 2019 version of himself from here on out, he won't be a Hall of Famer. But the league average hitter from previous seasons would make it. The glove will be there. Even in the season stunted by ankle injuries, he was still an elite defender at shortstop, and I think this is something Simmons can maintain for a while, as his actual foot speed isn't impressive. His defense is a result of good instincts, quick reactions, and a powerful arm, not freak athleticism that will disappear on the wrong side of 30. Let's finally combine offense and defense to talk about overall value. You might be surprised where Simmons ranks. WAR. Huh. Yeah. What is it good for? Absolutely something. Sing it again. With 36.9 Baseball Reference wins above replacement, Simmons ranks basically middle of the pack among Hall of Fame shortstops through their age 29 seasons, just ahead of Barry Larkin and well ahead of Luis Aparicio and Ozzie Smith. Another metric we could look at for a Hall of Fame case is wins above average, which is a measure of one's career against the average player rather than a replacement level one. If wins above replacement is a measure of goodness, wins above average is a measure of greatness. And once again, Simmons is in a pretty good spot, ranking ahead of 14 Hall of Fame shortstops at this point in his career. You may be surprised by these results, but let's break down WAR into its 3 main subcategories: batting runs, fielding runs, and base runs. Here's Andrelton Simmons and Derek Jeter. You can probably guess where this is going, but they actually generated the same amount of wins above average from age 23 to age 28. Yet, the distribution of batting, fielding, and base runs is completely different. Simmons is a slightly below average hitter, but an unbelievable defender, and Jeter is the opposite. Yet, when you add up these different types of runs, it reveals the same overall value above the league average. It just goes back to the wise teachings of Benjamin Franklin. A run saved with the glove is just as valuable as one created by the bat. Here's another nugget of wisdom from Benjamin Franklin. I think he was intoxicated when he said this one, but he said, "The best version of WAR is the one that supports your argument." And he was absolutely correct. F-WAR, otherwise known as Fangraphs WAR, does not support Simmons as much as Reference WAR. This is mostly because Fangraphs WAR is based on UZR, while Baseball Reference is based on DRS. Simmons has significantly less UZR, and thus gets less love from Fangraphs. Why? UZR is more conservative. Remember this graphic? It shows that DRS takes some extreme stances while UZR plays it pretty safe. And Ultimate Zone rating is probably the superior defensive metric for that reason alone, as the baseball intelligentsia aren't yet able to measure defense as effectively as they can measure offense. Don't worry folks, we haven't solved baseball yet. It surely won't hurt that JAWS, a metric created for Hall of Fame candidacy based on both peak and overall value, is based on R-WAR rather than F-WAR. Let's talk about how Simba can navigate the tricky Hall of Fame balloting process. It's probably time we talk more about Omar Vizquel, who currently sits on the Hall of Fame ballot and projects to get about 47% of the vote in his 4th year. That actually puts him on a decent trajectory to get in, as close calls like Tim Raines, Edgar Martinez, and Larry Walker, please Larry Walker, get in the Hall of Fame, please, 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 had not yet built as much support at this point in their candidacy. Vizquel, like Simmons, is a top-tier defensive shortstop, but his greatest weapon is not his peak, it's his longevity. If Simmons plays into his 40s like Vizquel, he's a no-brainer, but that seems unlikely because so few ballplayers pull it off. Still, Vizquel getting in would help Simmons, as Omar was a great defender but a well below average hitter. Under the current rules, Simmons probably won't hit the ballot until the 2030s, and the electorate will be more sabermetric friendly than they are now. This leads to my invention, the BBWAA Crush the Old Man Index. On the near end of the bell curve, you have maximum crotchetiness. These are the oldest of old school voters. They might respect elite defense, as they did with Ozzie Smith, or it's possible they only respect highlights and dubious Gold Glove awards. It's tough to get a read on these guys. Then you have the opposite of crotchety old men, smug sabermetricians. These skeptics will know that defensive metrics can be suspect and may judge Simmons on FWAR rather than his RWAR, or even his VORP. They know too much. The hope is that enough voters will lie in the middle, the Simmons sweet spot, the perfect amount of ignorance, just smart enough to look at jaws and understand defensive metrics. This is also where I stand. As far as the future of his career, I already stated that I think the defense will hold for now. It's predicated on his freak arm more than his foot speed. If he can get back on course with the hitting, he'll potentially put down some of his best offensive seasons in his 30s, similar to his peers Ozzie Smith, Luis Aparicio, and Omar Vizquel. He could even transfer to third base in his twilight years if the bat sticks around long enough. I hope that Andrelton Simmons has plenty of baseball left to play. Beyond the metrics, he is one of baseball's most entertaining and unique players. Not only is he capable of freak web gems, but he also routinely makes plays that show off his ridiculously high awareness and baseball IQ. And that makes him a great role model for younger ball players. So, hats off to you, Simba. May your defensive reign of terror continue, and may you one day shock us all by making it all the way to Cooperstown. This has been my Andrelton Simmons Hall of Fame hot take. Until next time, Foolish Baseball, signing off. I still don't know why the Braves traded this guy. This episode of Baseball Bits was brought to you by The Athletic. The Athletic provides its readers with the best baseball coverage and storytelling available. They employ a world-class team of writers that cover all your favorite organizations at the local level, as well as at the league level. And that goes for almost any sport you can imagine. On top of this, the website and app are completely ad-free, so no more annoying pop-ups. You can use my link at theathletic.com/foolishbaseball for 50% off your yearly subscription, as well as a 30-day free trial. Once again, thank you to The Athletic for sponsoring this episode of Baseball Bits.